Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased, except ours. I'm Colin.
I'm Craig.
Yes, yes.
And I'm Daniel.
Right. So today we have the Pacific Rim duology. And as we all know, they try to make a cinematic universe out of this, which we'll touch upon later, but it failed miserably, so there's only two of these things. So let's get into the first Pacific Rim, which came out in 2013, directed by Guillermo del Toro. And this one's pretty good, I would say.
I also concur.
Yes.
If that
I
means
agree
anything.
as I agree as well.
Yes. I think, first off, it's a little bit more than this straight monster, robot monster fighting affair. There's some kind of themes, sprinkled in there. That's what if you guys probably caught onto this, that's what the drift represents. It represents people coming together and, like, putting aside all differences so they could man the robots together to fight against the monsters.
And the fact that, it's like a lot of international, countries coming together too. It's not just
Yeah, not
one
just
country.
Yeah.
Americans coming
Or the
together.
Chinese in the second one.
Yeah. It's a whole bunch of people from all around the world coming together to fight monsters that have been harassing them for, I think in the movie it was like 10 years, like prior to the start of the film. I think
Some
so.
close enough.
8 years. Yeah. The main character is a guy named Raleigh, and I remember when I first saw this in the theaters, I didn't know which brother was which and which one died in the beginning. I couldn't tell. But then, yeah, it's Raleigh who witnessed this horrible, like, he was in his brother's head when he was murdered by a kaiju in the beginning. So he's kind of like a lost soul, just trying to, just get by, and then he gets dragged back into the Pacific Rim Corps, or whatever they call it, because they are outnumbered. They are hilariously outnumbered and outgunned by the monsters.
Just as a quick side, I never really understood their like military structure because it's obviously some sort of military thing, but I think Del Toro said he doesn't like the military or violence, so he didn't want it to be like, general commander or whatever. So that's why they've got like Ranger and Marshall as their like military stuff.
I did not know that. Thanks, Craig. Thanks for that.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic. I don't feel like you are, but it sounds like you are.
Craig, any thoughts?
Well, I guess the one thing is that this definitely feels like more of a love letter to like those kaiju movies as opposed to something cynical, which I feel like we would see today. Like I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
feel like you could tell there's like some sort of like a love for like, maybe Godzilla or old Gamera movies or any sort of like mecha or whatever kind of, inspiration you're pulling from. Like definitely feels like there's a love for it. Like because like it definitely feels like they're trying to pay homage to a lot of this stuff. Because I don't know, I just again like today's movies I'm so jaded where everything's like cynical and they gotta laugh at. Isn't it funny we're in giant monsters? Ho, 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 or giant robots fighting monsters? Ho, 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 ho.
Did
Just
you
it's very
guys catch
tiring.
on that the little meter they use to read the scale, or whatever category the kaiju is, it's called the Serizawa scale? I don't know if you guys caught on to that.
I did not catch on to that. That's
No,
that's a
I
nice
didn't.
that's a nice
That was
homage.
in the first one. They didn't mention that at all in the second one. It's more of an homage to Godzilla than Gamera.
Well, I'm saying like like the just the
Yeah.
kaiju movies in general. Obviously,
Yes.
Godzilla's the big boy.
Yeah.
What about you, Daniel? What say you?
I really I really enjoyed all of it. The one thing like rewatching it, I appreciated more was the attention to detail. Like you can tell, like Craig was saying, it's like a love letter. Where you can tell that Del Toro really took his time to like, especially with like the audio of the Jaegers and the kaiju and like the scoping of them and the shots and everything. Like he really, you could tell like he really gave great detail, like in the audio, but also like the detailing of the shots. The CGI looked great, but yeah, I really just enjoyed it. I thought it was an overall solid movie, but I really rewatching it. The attention to detail really blew me away. That how much time he took with it.
I was gonna say like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is like the opening scene where like not the describing the war, but like when they're suiting up for their first battle at
Yeah,
Anchorage, how like how it's like really like the team effort how it takes to even just like go into the Jaeger. Like you have to have people putting on the suits for them. You have all these technicians working, running, double checking diagnostics and stuff. You gotta put them onto the head, and the head goes onto the
yeah,
body. Is to bring the Jaeger all the way out to the ocean. Like it's a real team effort.
It
Not like
feels real, kind of.
yeah. It's grounded in some sort of realism.
yeah, not like in a hyper realist, but it makes you feel like there's like a team, and like because most of the in real life, it's not just like the one hero. Like I feel like in the sequel
Yeah,
of Brody,
Yeah, the dog is barking.
hold on.
But I think, obviously, when we say realistic, if there were giant monsters and people were operating them, I would imagine it would be operated like how they are in the movie, where like
it,
even
there's
when
the
they're in the
pilots.
yeah, even when they're in the cockpit, they're all connected to this giant mechanism inside the head. Like their arms to control the robot are connected to something. It looks realistic enough. Uh, as Daniel was saying, the direction of the first one was really great. A lot of human shots. There wasn't a camera flying around at 100 mph. It wasn't Godzilla vs Kong, is what I'm trying to say. And I'll save the criticisms for the second one on that.
Yeah,
But
I
the
was gonna.
monsters
Yeah,
just and the robots, they felt real. They were slow. They weren't again. They weren't jumping on top of buildings and doing cartwheels. Everything moved slowly and gracefully.
And too,
And
like there were a
yeah,
lot of like camera shots of like from the ground level to show like the scale, like how big these robots and monsters
yeah, they
are.
felt like they were
yeah.
actually there. Never once when I was watching this did I think like, I wonder how many hours it took for them to render that shot. Because that's all I was thinking about in the second one. Because it just felt like it was actually there. It just felt real.
Yeah.
And maybe
I,
that's also because you care about some of the characters too.
that,
You
I was
know,
also going to say is they even for a kaiju movie they took time to actually give their characters backstory and get you connected to them in some way. It's a like again like we're saying it's a kaiju movie, so characters can be typically tend to be limited in kaiju movies, but for this they did a pretty good job getting you emotionally connected, but also all the characters having a relevant part in it and not feeling like anyone had nothing to do.
Even what was it, the guy Bert or Herman?
oh, the two scientists,
Yeah, like
Newt.
even the one
Herman.
who was like the one with like the cane, even he had
Oh
something to do with
yeah.
the end. He helped Charlie drift to the
His
kaiju
name is
brain to
Newt.
figure.
His name is Newt. I thought Mako was pretty good. She was saved by his name's Stacker, I think.
Yeah,
Idris
really
Elba
weird.
Stacker. Stacker Pentecost.
Because
Again,
like Stacker,
yeah, you go, you go.
I thought Stacker was like part of his like military title or rank, like Matt Marshall Stacker, but no, it's actually
It's
his
actually his
name.
name, yeah. I like their little relationship where he's overprotective because he knows what it's like to be in those suits. And he's even dying if he goes into another suit, he's gonna die
He
from the
was a
immense
good parent in
radiation.
this movie.
What?
He was a good parent in this movie.
Yes, he actually cared. I guess, yeah, really, just send your daughter into a giant suit.
Well, I'm saying like he's good because like he's protective. Like at the same time, you gotta, that's the thing too. Like he was definitely he cared about her, but he was trying to be like, the good leader to like having to make this tough sacrifice. Like, he let her go into knowing that, well, she is probably the best one. We are at the, much else to, you know, I'm losing my words, but
Well, he also, it's he's also still the head of the military, so he has to keep that formality with it and like the tough love. But it's like
well,
that's
make the tough decisions. Like,
yeah,
he loves her,
exactly.
but she probably is the best one to go in there.
Well, they also were running out of people, so they didn't have much of a choice. Like Earth was at stake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they were like, as I said earlier, they were humorously overpowered by the kaiju.
Yeah,
Where
I did like
yeah,
that detail about the kaiju that they were sending waves and they were getting stronger and stronger, like they were just wearing down Earth. And I just thought that was like a cool little detail about them.
I did think it was a little funny how like I guess the governments came together and thought it'd be a good idea to basically build the Ring of Fire wall to stop the kaiju.
just
And
bring
they
it
tore
down.
through it in like an hour or something. It's like who thought that was a good idea? Like there's nothing stopping them from like tearing through. I guess they're assuming what they're gonna just get bored and walk away. Like, oh, sorry guys, it's taking too long.
I'll
Yeah,
go destroy it another day.
and of course their stupidity like almost doomed humanity. But it didn't.
No, it didn't. I think also the kaiju designs and monster or the suit designs and the kaiju designs were pretty good. Like every monster looked different. Because as we're gonna go when we talk about the second one, everyone looked the same. But like you could easily see the differences between the suits or the mech suits. There's the one with the three arms. There's the Russian one where it just looked like it was like big and bulky.
Well, I kind of like that because that was like, it's like a little attention to detail where that was like one of the first ones built,
No, that's what
and
I'm saying. I
because of
like
that it's
that.
like simpler.
Yeah,
I like how they're all easily distinguishable by the eye. We're like, oh, that one has three arms, and that one's like the fastest one. Whatever, I think it was like the Eureka, the Striker Eureka.
So the Australian one.
Yeah, the father son one.
yeah,
Pretty cool stuff.
yeah.
Again, it helps too. There's not like, they're not trying to sell that many toys, so if they limit how many Jaegers run, it's easier to distinguish as opposed to having like so many I can't tell them apart anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like the one couple of the scenes that I really enjoyed was when Gypsy Danger showed up in the water to fight Leatherback, and um and when he drops in the ocean, like you hear the impact on it, and like it actually feels like a giant robot landed. It's not like a video game where it's just like it's that attention to detail and like how they like even when they get into formation, like even I was gonna say like the robot's actions or the movements are a little delayed because like the humans have to move first. Like just that little attention to detail by Del Toro, or when Gypsy Danger is fighting the flying one in the city. I forget the name of that kaiju.
I don't remember the names. I just know like it's one that can
I think
fly
it's
and
like a
just go
Tachi or
faster.
something like that. It was, but and he's like dragging the ship with him in the city. And then also too, like I don't know if you noticed this, but when he like when they were walking through the streets, and there's like a little bridge, and they step over it just to be like a little cautious and actually have regard for human life. On like the second one, but it was I just and then also too you can hear all the like you were saying, Craig, like in the beginning, you can hear all the machine like all the mechanisms of the machine actually going together, and then
Also,
the
like
oh
like you
go ahead.
mentioned too, like when you see them in the suit and like they're walking, how like they aren't like running a lot of times, but they're just walking because they can't really run that fast. It's like you could see like the steps going and like the slow steps they have to take because
Yeah,
this isn't I don't know.
it's not a video game. It's trying to
Yeah.
ground itself in some realism.
Now, Craig, they said in the first one after the EMP, it won't affect Gypsy because Gypsy's analog and is nuclear. Now, how true is that, Craig?
That was the one thing where I don't know why they couldn't have said like they've got EMP shielding or something. Because like analog usually, unless they're when they say analog, I'm assuming they have to refer to like analog, like they've got like gears turning or something. Kind of like in Godzilla, the 2014 one, where it's like a
Clockwork.
analog bomb because of the gears. I'm assuming they have to refer to that because like analog circuits wouldn't make sense as a EMP proof. And yeah, and it's clear there's like tons of LEDs and like all that fancy technology. There's no way that's
There's
powered
clearly
by.
electricity in there.
Yeah, and I don't know like being nuclear matters either. I mean, nuclear is just what powers it. I thought they all were nuclear anyway. I mean, I don't
I
know.
guess not. Maybe that's he's talking about. Maybe it's meta because he's talking about like cars and stuff. Oh, the old ways are better. Guess.
But even cars now have like computers in them where they can't run without them.
Well, I'm just saying, like cars running on gas instead of electric cars.
Oh,
Diesel powered cars are better.
what did he mean by this? Yeah, I mean that was just. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think most people wouldn't even. I don't think most people would catch how that's kind of dumb, but if you do, it's like it's really stupid.
Yeah, it's not going to ruin your experience and be like, well, that's not
Yeah,
scientifically accurate.
Yeah, no, just it's just could have given a different excuse. Have someone like, hey, maybe that's not the best excuse to give. Just say EMP proof. I feel like that's easier. It's like, hey, it could be true.
I mean, when you have giant robots running around fighting monsters, I feel like any little excuse would be good enough. I don't
yeah,
know. It's,
Yeah,
your belief is already suspended enough.
yeah. Again, it's when we say it's grounded in some sort of realism, it's still a kaiju movie. So
well, because you say like grind, it's like it's trying to make itself
yeah,
believable enough so like the
yeah,
audience can buy in. It's not like
yeah. But again, it's a
it's
kaiju
basically not the
movie, so
sequel.
yeah. Well, but
But
I
yeah,
also like the ending too when they're fighting on the bottom of the ocean. I thought that was cool. That was very like well done. And like they're slow again, like it's just like they're slowly walking on the bottom of the ocean. I thought the ending fight because again like there was actual like I feel like there was like
I must stop you. The one thing that was a little weird and ridiculous is that when they set off the nuke, it blows up the water all into the sky, and they're at the bottom of the ocean, and then it just falls back down on them.
I mean that probably would happen, pushing the water away, but it wouldn't be like that, obviously.
Yeah, I was like,
uh,
what?
yeah no, I meant like the robots
Oh, I know,
underwater.
I know. I'm just saying
Yeah,
with the nuke.
because
Like
like
even at
even at
the
the end like I felt like again like I was saying before like you actually felt connected with these characters. There was some
the fate
you
of the
know
world.
yeah exactly and like he he dies at the end Idris Elba and like
Well, I
there's
actually thought that Raleigh was gonna. When I first saw in the theaters, I thought Raleigh was gonna die at the end.
well, that's what I mean is like in this they set it up in a way like everyone was no one was safe like with the kaiju's and stuff, so anyone could have died at any moment. So like at the end like there are actual stakes with these characters. It's not a happy go lucky like how you expect like you kind of already know everyone's gonna make it back.
Or like some cinematic universe product where they have to survive because there's like 20 more sequels that the writers room planned out.
Pacific Rim into the multiverse,
My God, don't give me
but
any ideas. These hacks. I would say the one character that I didn't really like was the young Australian guy, the son.
That's the whole point, though, Craig. He's the
I
brash, cocky hotshot.
and yeah, I know. It's just one of those things where I feel like, you would check your ego a bit. Like you could still think you're the best pilot or whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, the world is at stake. You would probably want to take
Yeah,
any help you can get.
there are bigger
yeah,
risks
yeah.
and problems than some guy who's washed up joining you.
Like I feel like you maybe give him a hard time or whatever, but then like, you would earn his respect. Something a little more subtle. Not,
Yeah.
oh, let me fight him, let me go try to beat him up and insult them. It's like, all right.
Well, I guess
Like
his logic was that after the first failed attempt, it's like so Stacker's trying to bring on these people who are going to sabotage our mission because that's what he was pretty much. That's when it was like it reached the apex of him not liking Raleigh.
I know, but it was still like a bit extreme even when they first came on, where it was like, ah, you want to shut down the Jaeger program.
Well,
It's like,
they did go against Stacker's orders and almost got
put
themselves
anchorage.
killed.
Yeah.
It would have been
Just to
fun.
save a boat.
I'm just saying, it's one of those things where it's like, you could have, like I'm saying, just it could be a little more subtle. You don't have to be like,
Yeah.
some movies where it has to be over the top with their like anger and their animosity.
His ego and hatred towards him so big that he starts helping the kaiju try to kill Gypsy Danger.
So you get Riley.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the end, they redeemed his character. Like him in but you kind of like realize like he's kind of a jerk because like him and his dad's relationship is kind of strained, and then in the end, kind of redeems himself with Stacker when they like sacrifice themselves. So it was, it's a. I know what you mean though. It was a little over the top. Like they're greater stakes, but they at least redeem them at the end. So
Because even Charlie or was it Newt, him and
yeah,
the
Newt.
other scientist, like they bickered, but it never felt like they were trying to like sabotage each other.
Yeah,
Like they had their differences, they thought they were right, but it was at the end of the day, like there was some, like respect there because they realized what their work is important.
And they both were right at the end.
I mean, yeah, that
yeah,
helped too, but like that's what I'm saying. Like they were, at each other's, against each other, but it was never like over the top.
yeah. And then
Especially when they're about to drift together, and Newt's like, "Let's do this," and then he like Herman awkwardly shakes his hand. Oh, most certainly.
is it Ron? What was the name of Ron Perlman's character?
Like Hannibal Chow. Yeah, Hannibal Chow.
Yeah, the black market dealer. Because even he like played a pretty pivotal like part in the movie, and he like ends up helping them in like some in his own way.
Some underground kaiju black market.
If it wasn't for him though, I would have never been able to drift.
That's true.
They would never know how to destroy, or they would never know that in order to destroy the breach, you have to have a kaiju with you.
I did think it was funny though, Newt's character, how he was like they called him like the kaiju groupie, how he like all the kaiju tattoos
Oh
on
yeah, I think
him.
Herman called him that. He's like, "Oh, he's one of those kaiju groupies."
Like what kind of like scientist has all these stupid tattoos of like the kaiju supposed to be working on? I mean, obviously he played he's a good character, just kind of funny too. I don't know, makes me chuckle.
One part that made me chuckle was when after Herman and Newt drifted, and then Newt says to Herman like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, looks like he's having a seizure. He's like, "Of course."
That's like the only other little like comedic touches too.
It
Yeah,
wasn't obnoxious.
it
Oh yeah,
didn't. It didn't like. Yeah, it didn't upset the tone of the movie. It took itself serious enough with hints of it, but it never distracted the tone.
oh,
They
yeah. It's
can.
like movies now where there's gotta be a joke every 5 seconds, otherwise people might, I don't know, like have like a seizure because like it's not, constant references or jokes or
Their brain malfunctions.
yeah, it's like like people like are addicted to like drugs. People are addicted to like constant references or they're addicted to constant jokes in these movies now. Okay, a joke every like 5 seconds, like I don't know, they'll start going through withdrawal.
And they
Look
start
at
like
her.
whipping out their hair. Where's my funny comedic guy?
Where's my
Say
multiverse
joke.
reference?
Say joke.
Where's my cameo? I need a cameo.
Where's my Chris Evans cameo?
Where, where's the callback?
Then they brain explodes and we're all happier.
Anyway,
Anything else about the first? I guess one thing we forgot is the music. The music is terrific
yes,
I love the
in
main
yes,
this
theme.
movie.
I love that soundtrack.
It's
Spe-
very
spe-
cool, very well done, very rock star ish in the beginning when Raleigh and whatever his Yancey, his brother, are suiting up in the armor. Very
yeah,
cool.
And
or
then yeah,
or like or when they drop in the ocean, or when they're bringing the Jaegers over. There's always that like that just that. It wasn't even sometimes it wasn't even that long. It was just like that
Like
like
a
the cool
riff, you
yeah,
know.
the guitar part. It would and then it would go right into it. Very nice touch with the soundtrack.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that the main character's name was Riley or
Raleigh,
Raleigh,
Raleigh.
Raleigh, North Carolina. I always thought it was Riley and everyone was just saying it wrong.
Oh, it's Raleigh.
Because like, well,
Raleigh.
yeah, because like the Australian guy, it sounded like he was like whatever, like Riley. Like I thought he was trying to say Riley wrong.
Okay, that was just his accent.
I don't. Well, it could. He was like angry and yelling at him. It could have been an insult.
Craig's not cultured,
No,
Colin.
he's not.
He's a
I'm aware.
caveman.
I'm
Yeah, I
aware.
know. I'm stuck in my ways already.
Like Johnny Lawrence. But anyway.
Yeah, Craig's just a caveman who is somehow unknowingly trapped, but not like in suspended animation.
But
Real
yeah,
quick, they said they reached out for Tom Cruise for the role of Stacker, but he declined because of scheduling conflicts.
are you
I
sure
think
he didn't decline because he couldn't do stunts with actual kaiju?
Could you imagine?
oh, there's like a scene of
Let's
him
go!
running
He's like
running
running
into
around,
the
probably running full speed in the suit. But then he's running so fast, like the hinges connecting him fall apart, and he runs straight out of the cockpit.
Yeah, it's just a shot of like Gypsy Danger walking behind him just running in his full animated in the street. Uh,
so I mean both I
That would
think
have been
both of us
terrible.
played Portal, right?
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you're gonna say. The
Yeah.
AI,
It was
whatever, is voiced
GLaDOS.
by, yeah,
Yeah, GLaDOS. Because
the
yeah, I love
nerd.
because GLaDOS is very humorous. I don't know why they brought in GLaDOS like in the game. She's like a psychopathic AI, and I don't know why they made her the AI for the Jaeger. You know. I mean, it's a nice voice and all, but it very seems like a very odd choice to cast the you know.
just Colin, I know you know what kaiju means. You know what Jaeger means.
Uh, they said it in the beginning of the movie. I don't remember.
It means hunter.
In German.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Thanks, Daniel, for that information.
anytime.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Colin giving us, you know. Anyway, moving on.
Colin has is like, jokes at the people's expense, who we are, enriching the lives of people by giving them knowledge they might not have known before.
Yeah, someone might be
I just,
studying
uh,
German.
I just told you that Tom Cruise is. They reached out for him.
That's celebrity drama. We want real knowledge.
Yeah.
But you feel pretty silly now,
Speaking of awkward silence, should we talk about the second one?
huh? Yeah, the empty theaters for the second one.
So speaking of Chinese pandering, we have the sequel, Pacific Rim Uprising, which came out 5 years later after the original. And Craig and I the other day were doing some. We're looking at the box office intake of the first Pacific Rim, and it made 411 million box off total worldwide. It made 114.3 million in China alone, which was the movie's biggest market. It made just over 100 million in North America. So the people at Legendary were like, "Ooh, look at this. 114 million. Let's have our sequel centered around uh in China and whatnot." And Craig, wasn't this when Legendary was acquired by a Chinese company, right?
Yeah, they were acquired in 2016. They were bought up by a Chinese group called the Wanda Group.
Ah, yes.
And apparently the actress, her name was like Jing Tian. I'm probably saying it horribly wrong, but
Probably
apparently I
are.
can't find proof of this, but I think she has connections to like higher ups in the company as to why she keeps getting acting jobs because she's a horrible actress, not just in like American movies, but even in her own country. I think she's been nominated for three most like worst actress awards, and she's won
Oh,
twice.
oh, wow, wow, that's quite the accolade.
Yeah, so
Good
you
for
wonder why
her.
she's so
Good
yeah.
for her.
Yeah, we never won those.
Yeah. So, this movie is terrible. Pacific Rim Uprising is just terrible.
It's more fun to talk about stuff like this than the actual movie.
Yes, and I wrote down a bunch of stuff on. I have a page full of creepy notes. And first things first, this movie felt very much like Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, obviously, Godzilla vs. Kong came out after this, but I saw this 2 days ago, and I was like, oh my god. I was having Godzilla vs. Kong flashbacks. It was so reminiscent of it. It just like I guess I'll talk about it. The monster fighting and the camera again,
Yes.
moving super fast, zooming, doing barrel rolls. It felt like a giant cartoon. And that's when I was thinking about to myself, like, oh man, I wonder how long it took for these artists to render this and how much money each shot was.
The one thing I was gonna,
It was so
yeah,
bad. The direction and the directing and everything felt weightless. Giant robots should not be moving this fast. This giant monster should not be moving this fast. Yeah, Daniel, sorry. I interrupted
I
you.
was also gonna say the CGI looked worse.
I wouldn't
It looked.
say that. A lot
I
of
think
it
in certain shots the CGI was noticeably worse.
I disagree. I would just
I guess
say
it might have been because of how they were moving
It
and
was
how
like
it
in
was shot.
bright lights and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and how it was shot.
You're in the
Yeah,
bright daylight and they have these terror I hate when movies do this where it's like the scuff stuff gets on the camera and you see like these particles on it that make it look like oh the camera's really there. They're really filming it. Godzilla vs Kong again. It did the exact same thing and it was just so frustrating and I just hate it.
there was one.
It's how you
Yeah,
light
yeah,
your CGI rendered models. Guillermo del Toro, very wisely. I mean, he did also do it at night in rain,
yes.
so that hides it too a little bit. It also helps that everything moves slower. It feels realistic. Here, a giant robot jumps up and uses a whip, and then the monster catches it and then flings him across a bunch of buildings.
Because that's the thing too. Like I know people like to complain about having monster fights at night or in the rain or
I was
whatever,
gonna
but
say the same thing.
it's purposely done to. I know it's done to make the CGI effects look better. So, people complain about it, like, oh, why can't you do it in the day? It never typically doesn't look as good. So
Most
there's a
monster
Yeah,
reason why they
movies,
do it.
even before the CGI era, have always been at night because it also would help hide the lines that the monsters were attached to. Because if you shoot that at broad daylight, you would see the lines so much more clear than if it was at night. So I don't. I know that's such a dumb argument where everyone's like, "We have to have our monsters at daylight."
Yeah,
Duh, duh,
people are
duh.
spurging out. I know, yeah, there's
Yeah.
people spurging
yeah,
over something like so like nonsensical, like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the movie.
yeah. No, I was gonna agree. I agree with everything you said, Colin, because that was my thought watching this. I literally finished watching it today, and I meet like one of the first things I thought I was like, oh my god, this is like Godzilla vs Kong. Like the fight scenes were like almost like the exact same. And obviously, like you said, that one came out before, but like and also too in the final fight, like I think Gypsy Avenger. They changed the
Yes.
name on us.
Yes.
They tricked us. They subverted our expectations. Um, Gets flung back. Like I think when they're fighting the first trio of the final before they morph into that monstrosity, and he gets flung back, and the next Jaeger comes flying, and they slide under him, or they like they bend back like a human. I'm like, what is this? It's horrible.
By far, the worst shot was when that giant. And after this, we should get into the general plot because
Yeah,
not a lot of people saw this movie, and it was a box office disappointment. But realistically, everyone at Legendary is writing suicide notes because of how bad this bombed. But the one shot that I thought was the worst in the entire movie is when that giant monster combines, and then the camera very fast pans to each Jaeger's like powering up and suiting up, and it pans to like it moves the camera moves really fast to four Jaegers, and it looks so unnatural and so weird. That's like when that one with the giant mace for a hand it spins and it quickly swooshes over to Gypsy Avenger who has like his two katanas that are electric. It was something stupid like that. That was the worst shot of the movie.
I,
They're
I was
thinking that
also
was so cool,
yeah.
probably.
I was just gonna say too the weapons like they
Well,
gave the
hold on.
Jaegers, but we'll go yeah
Let's go
later.
into the plot because we're just rambling at this point. So Craig, you want to talk about the plot?
Great, I'm giving this dubious honor.
Yeah.
So the beginning of the movie, we see apparently Stacker has a son, and he's a terrible father because his son's like a huge failure and a loser. So that's a good way to start your movie, tearing down an old character. He gets caught trying to steal parts, and he ends up getting recruited back into the Pan Pacific Defense Corps, or whatever, to be a Jaeger pilot. And then the Chinese companies making drones to replace the Jaeger pilots, but oh no, Charlie or Newt put kaiju brains in them, and they brought back the kaiju, and then they come back, and they're gonna destroy the world again when they save the day.
Well, Craig, you're forgetting a very key element, and it's how the kaiju are going to destroy the world. That directly makes all the monsters from the first Pacific Rim look like a bunch of morons. They
Well, I
want
was gonna
to.
get to that. I was gonna get to that, but just this is a quick
Oh yeah,
summary.
Craig, do you want to talk about it then? What the kaiju wanted in this movie, and not in the
Yes,
first
because
one?
I was caught very off guard. I had to rewind it like 3 times to make sure I didn't hear it. I heard it right because I was like, "There's no way that's true." So apparently, in this one, the kaiju's original goal was to basically commit suicide and jump into the active volcano because Mount Fuji, if they jump into Mount Fuji, it would like gas the planet and we all die from poisoning or whatever. But I was thinking, okay, because even at that point, they're saying, "Oh, let's track their movements from the kaiju war to see where they would go." Like, oh, it all leads to Mount Fuji. I'm like, the opening of
No.
the first one took place in Anchorage. Like, they're almost walking opposite to get as far as they could from Mount Fuji. I mean, there were attacks on the west coast of the U.S. and South
Yeah,
America and
the movie
Australia.
literally
Like,
the first one begins with archival footage of a kaiju attacking the Golden Gate Bridge.
yeah,
It's
it's
like
like
Yeah.
if they all were attacking in the first one, they're all attacking these various parts of the world. Why wouldn't they all have always been going to Japan,
because then
Mount
you quickly learn,
Fuji?
okay, yeah, let's defend Japan because that's clearly where they're headed to. No, it's just they were just attacking out of the portal, like in I don't know any direction they choose, from what
And
I gathered.
Newt even said after he drifted with the kaiju in the first movie, he said they're sending out like drones to wipe out the heavily populated areas, and then they bring out the big guns, which will finish the job. That was the
Yeah.
whole point. That's why they were racing to. That's why they were seeing these like bigger category monsters. The drones were weakening the heavy populated areas. Now all of a sudden they want to go after Mount Fuji when they clearly could have in the first one. Now I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the co-writers of this movie is also co-writing the upcoming Jurassic World movie. So we're graced with a very talented screenwriter. Her name is
Nice.
Emily Carmichael.
Oh no. I mean, was she like I don't know, because there's like multiple writers. Was she like one of the main ones, or was she part
She
of the
has a
writers' room?
no, her it has a written by, and she's in one of the four writers.
But I'm saying, like, because there's four of them. Is she like the main head honcho, which is part of like a writer's room?
I don't know. Let's just assume she had some say in it. And the very discerning part, and I want to go off topic. The very concerning part for me is that I saw an interview with Colin Trevorrow, who said he was very impressed by Carmichael's writing on this movie. So we have that to look forward to. But I wanted to also talk about, since we're talking about how poorly it's written, that dialogue is something I noticed immediately is very bad and full of cliches. I wrote some of them down, and it's you had so much potential. Look at what you are now. Your father would be disappointed. I also there's one scene. Do you guys remember the scene with Newt and Herman, the first time they meet, and how terrible it
Oh
was?
yeah. Yeah.
Where it felt like, and I wrote this down in my notes too. Feels like it's written for dumb people who didn't see the first one. And I wrote
Yes.
down, I quote, "That was you, that was me," when they're talking about doing like linking with the kaiju brain. That scene was just so badly written, where they're describing what they did in the first movie, and it's like, well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to repeat what you did and then say, "That was me, I did that, and so did you." This is actual dialogue from the movie.
No, I felt that way too. I was like, are they trying to reintroduce like a new generation? Like as if this movie happened 25 the first one happened 25 years before. We have to like refresh people.
Well, because this movie felt like to me like it was a almost like a modern reboot of a franchise that only has one entry that came out 5 years ago. Because it was
Yeah.
stuff like that, like reintroducing everything, all those like terrible decisions they made, like I don't know, having kids in the movie now because you got to like appeal to kids. It's like
Well,
I don't know.
Craig, I know you could talk about that because you were telling me how much you hate this trope in movies.
I hate child geniuses. I hate it with a burning passion. It's a very lazy. It's very lazy. Like, the kid just it's just so smart. They just know all these things. I'm like, that's not how smart kids work. It's not how any intelligence work. You have to got to learn. They got to like learn and practice and do this stuff. Like, oh, they're just smart. Like, I hate it. Like every movie there's like a child genius. Like it's automatically like 10 times worse than it should be just because they have a child genius in it.
Well,
Yeah,
right
Oh,
in the
how does he
that
know?
beginning,
Hey, he's the child genius. He's
that
only
bugged
learning
me.
algebra. He just learned multiplication, but he knows all this complex stuff. He's in third grade.
yeah, right in the beginning, this I forget her name. It doesn't matter. She built like a 25, 30 foot Jaeger.
It looked like a transformer, like Bumblebee knockoff.
Yeah, it looked like
Yeah.
a monochrome bumblebee.
That's the thing too. Like, how can the average person build a Jaeger? I mean, the first ones were powered by like nuclear. Like you saw the people working on it just to keep it running.
I
It
was just
was,
gonna
it was
say,
powered by a
like,
nuclear reactor. I mean, that's not like you could just go buy plutonium from somewhere. Like how would you get that? I mean, I know it's probably
yeah,
not powered by a nuclear reactor, but it's like how it's not easy for like the average like even a team of people that would still be like a stretch to build. And you got this, oh, it's a child genius. She just knows all this stuff. It's like she just is so natural to her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not buying it.
Well, I knew I was aware of the critical reception of this movie,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
no one saw it,
but right
so
off the start, I was like, "Oh no!" When it started with John Boyega, whose character's name is Jake. Yeah, he starts
yeah,
narrating, and he's talking about the Kaiju War. He's recapping the first movie, and then it feels like it cuts to like an MTV commercial where
yes.
it's like, "I'm on the streets selling cookies, and you have to do this to live on the streets." I was like, "Oh my god, what is happening?"
I was so baffled by that too. It's like he's selling like a car for hot sauce. You gotta watch out. No, he literally was like, you gotta watch out for your cookies. I was like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
And he's like partying at a house that's like has a giant like skeleton on it. It's honestly like MTV Cribs. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, like I was I was like, what are they going for? Like, it's like they were literally in California. It wasn't like some dystopian world 500 years in the future, like Mad Max. Like, there's
Yeah, like
different
you
levels
think
of
they would have
crime.
rebuilt after 10 years, right?
Well, but he established that in his opening dialogue was most of the world had rebuilt, but there was like some weird zones that they just for some reason didn't rebuild.
And now you gotta watch for your cookies on the streets, which were
Yeah,
Oreos.
apparently hot sauce in Cali in like 2030 is more valuable than a
It's by
car.
Mexico. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I thought that was incredibly stupid that she rebuilt an entire she built an entire um, Jaeger by herself,
I hate the
especially
first
in the
movie.
first one when they established that like you were saying, Craig, like in the opening of the first, they take time to show all the details of people working on
It's a
different
whole
parts.
crew to work
It's
and maintain one.
yeah, and this is like military grade stuff, not stuff you can like you just put together as a mechanic. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
your
that
local
was
mechanic and put not even like your local mechanic, your local, spelling bee champion can barely put this together.
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to keep harping on, but I really hate this trope. Like, I know it's meant for kids, but I don't think I even liked it as a kid. And as an adult, I
Well,
hate it
also,
more and more now.
I think also with the problem with that sequence, like Colin, you were saying, is in a and to go back to the to compare it to the first one, which the first one did so much better, was the tone. Like they open up this movie with his dialogue of like our generation was born into war. Like it's supposed to be serious, and he's recapping everything, and then it goes from that to him in an MTV music video in Los Angeles selling cookies for cars. Like it just and then him and the girl, I think he was calling her Smalley the whole time, was like they're joking and stuff, and he's like this like edgy like thief, with that other crew. Now he's in trouble, and like, but him and the girl are joking, and then like that sequence when they had whatever that police Jaeger was, the big one. It was like it was like something November. I forget the name of it,
November.
but
Yeah, it's called like November. So yeah, the law enforcement or
yeah, the law enforcement
PVC.
Jaeger. Which I don't know why you have a law enforcement Jaeger.
Yeah, it's a bit
That's
overkill.
That seems excessive, yeah. And it's just like not taking the scene seriously. It's like stop, stop, and then it like I forget at one point
Could you
the
imagine getting like a speeding ticket and that thing trying to kill you?
Get out of your car and smashes the street in front of you.
yeah.
Like
And
it's
then
just a
like
speeding ticket, man.
I don't know if you guys caught this though, but when they were in Scrapper and they're doing the little bowling ball thing, and and she's moving around it, and I'm not kidding. The Jaeger literally like when they did like a move goes seriously, like the cop Jaeger said that. I was like, wait, what? It was
Well,
just
that's to show that they're not impressed, Daniel. I was gonna say one of
No.
my big complaints also is John Boyega is not a leading man, and I feel bad for him because he had to go through the Star Wars sequel trilogy and how those movies just didn't know what to do with him. But he is not a leading man. The movie it felt desperate to capitalize off the success of Star Wars, and it tried too hard to make him likable and try to make him charismatic when he's really not that. He it was just like, oh, in this one scene, he's like, don't be talking about my sprinkles, don't be talking about that.
oh god,
I
He's,
do question the logic of casting him for a Chinese, marketed movie, considering how much the Chinese don't are racist. Like, I do
oh yeah,
question the logic
well,
of that
I guess we should just quickly mention on some Disney Star Wars posters in China, they would very terribly remove John Boyega from the poster cover.
because they don't like black
Yeah,
people. So
but
I do question the logic of
aside
that
from that, it's just he's miscast. He's I feel bad for him, but he's just not a leading guy. He can't carry a movie on himself. He doesn't have that kind of charisma. He's not
yeah.
likable, and in the movie, he's a loser pretty much. But then they
I
always
mean,
try to make, oh, you could have been so much better. Yeah, sorry, John
well, that's
Boyega, you're not good in this.
I was gonna say too, like, because this is the things I hate when like these kinds of movies come out, like where they've, I guess, to connect it or something, they have to like tear down old characters. Where, oh, it turns out Stacker Marshall was actually like a poor father because look how he turned out. Like, oh great, so this character we liked in the first one is actually a terrible father. He's a hero. He was a nice guy because he adopted Mako, but now he's actually a loser because his son was a loser or a bit of a failure. Like,
Yeah,
I,
thanks.
I think
yeah.
also what I didn't like is they kept on mentioning Stacker's speech, and they're like, "Oh, like, well, what a speech your father gave! Oh, so great, so great."
Yeah, it's like those like meta jokes that I'm just so sick of. It's like, okay, yeah, it was a good speech, but like, why are you referencing it like as a joke? Like, I don't know. I don't like it.
In the context of the first movie, they're pretty much knew it was a suicide mission what he was doing.
And it was like their
He was trying
last
to
chance
he was
to.
trying to uplift everybody in there to give it their all to fight for the fate of Earth. He wasn't trying to make a goofy, funny speech.
Well, he said like like it's the end of the we're canceling the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good speech. It's one of those again. You don't have to like make jokes. Like just give a good speech, and I don't know. I don't know why everything has become like a joke.
Yes, and Scott Eastwood's also in this. Nate, or I think he's Nate. The guy's
Yeah,
name.
Nate.
I didn't mind him too much, but it's just like again, I guess he's doing the best with what he's given.
Yeah.
You
I
have
thought he was the best character just because he
yeah,
wasn't annoying. Like he didn't annoy me.
he's not eating ice cream to look like some smart guy who really knows it all, or he's like, don't be talking about my sprinkles. He was just kind of there, and I guess in in this kind of movie, that's all you need to be to not be annoying. You just be there, don't say anything too much.
Everyone else, and don't get me on like and the stupid the cast of cadets, because I
Oh
know,
God.
yeah, because it's I guess
Yeah.
the fun, comical, ethnically diverse cast of cadets. But I know it's because they want to have like probably tons of spin-offs, and all of them will be in the spin-offs or whatever. And I just I didn't care for them. They were very annoying. The
Another
fake
thing
drama.
too is that in the first movie, they don't have a lot of Jaegers, and it's like they're running. short of like pilots and Jaegers. In this one, they have like a whole arsenal. It's like, how are you not prepared for this at this point? It seems like they've been building for something, and they still get manhandled by a giant or by a giant monster.
I know we're skipping ahead, but I think one of the funniest parts in the movie is when I don't know which cadet like they charged the kaiju and just died.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was the
He was he's
it
from
was
Disney
the
Channel. That guy.
it was the Russian and the well, I forgot the other kid's
They're
name.
all the same, but I was like, is this like a joke? It's like, what are you doing? I got him, and he just
Go
dies.
for the eyes. Which one? All of them. And he just dies.
But and that's also that was one thing I was going to point out is they completely ignore that kid's death at the end. like like the tone, everyone's all celebrating and everything, but no one's mourning this kid that just died.
Who
And then
cares?
like no, because like
Well, that's
was
not
at
really
the end.
tone. That's just them forgetting about what happened. Like, oh yeah, he just this guy died, but let's just cheer.
Let's have a snowball fight at the end.
Yeah, that was so weird too.
Ignore all the devastation and everything, everyone that just died in that. But let's have a snowball fight. I've never seen snow before.
Ugh, spare me.
Yeah, this movie is
Also,
just terrible.
also, I was gonna say, couldn't the impact when they came down and hit the final kaiju, would that could that have possibly set the volcano off from the force and impact?
Well, I think they hit it at the side or the peak of the like not directly in the volcano, but maybe around the peak of it. I don't know.
But I was just saying,
I
Realistically, if that
I don't know how volcanoes get set off. I mean, I thought it was like with the tectonic plates or whatever. I'm not an expert.
I don't know. I just was thinking that they're like, we have to stop this kaiju from erupting this volcano. Let's hit him at full force. I just thought that would have been funny if they hit him to stop it, and then the impact sets it off anyway. Uh, but a man
And
can
speaking
dream.
of terrible things I hate in reboots is I always something I notice in movies when like I guess they want to make something a franchise, so someone writes the first one, the second one comes around, and I guess the writers change, and it's like they don't want to play with like they don't want to share their toys in a way. So what they typically do is they kill off like the original characters and keep their characters. I want to play with my toys. I want to share my toys. So like they kill off Mako for really like no reason at all whatsoever because I guess they didn't create her, they didn't write for her, so they just gonna kill her off because it's not my toy.
Well, you see, Craig, they had to kill off Mako because I don't know if you got this, or John Boyega's character didn't make it clear enough. He didn't want to be there. He
Yes, he
really did.
said.
So he needed motivation, as if he didn't say it 10 times in like 10 scenes in a row. He's like, I don't want to be here. Like, we get it. Your character doesn't want to be here. You don't have to keep beating the audience over the head
well,
with
Some
it.
point be
You don't understand the brilliance of Stephen DeKnight and Emily Carmichael's writing. You don't understand the brilliance of it.
Clearly
it's actually a
not.
cry for help. He didn't want to be in the movie.
He was a producer on it too.
Oh, never mind.
He improvised those lines.
I wouldn't be surprised. It felt very Disney Star Wars with some of his like like I felt very Marvel, I should say, like don't be touching my sprinkles. Like that's dumb people humor. I feel like if you had a bunch of children in there, they would have been laughing. They don't want
Well,
to touch the
that
sprinkles. Huh?
well, that was something too with the tone. It felt very much more the audience felt much more like kid like. It was stupid. But
Wait, because they're obviously targeting kids. I mean, they got those stupid cadets. Probably for in another sequel like Pacific Rim Cadets, whatever, some stupid
yeah, like
movie
there
or
was
TV
literally
show.
there was no other Rangers or people you could have for the kite. Like, how do you have like 100 Jaegers, but you only have like five like adult like Rangers?
Not even five. It was just two. I only remember it was like the two main characters. Like, and there's like a bunch of like annoying cadets.
Also, another scene I thought that they were gonna eventually come back to because they kind of did it in the first was the scene where after Mako dies and he's John Boyega, Jake, he's like walking around and he sees um, the little girl. She's like struggling with the mind, the drift with the like that. I guess that like the training program, and then he does it with her, and then he gets stuck in her memory, and then they just completely disregard that later. Like you thought, like maybe there'd be a moment where she finally gets it, like to actually develop a character or have some sense of like arc. But no, she just when they're for the final fight, it's like, all right, she's good to go. She's joining with two other people, and this is just isn't an issue. You know, usually that could have been some scene where like there's emotion to it, but no, she's good to go. She's a kid genius. She'll overcome it.
I know it's just again, it's like not very thought out or not thought out well. It's
It's not
just
executed well.
well that
Any
too.
any other creepy notes you got there, Colin?
Yeah, it looks and sounded like a Transformers movie. The
Yes.
robots moving around. I was thinking like, is this Transformers like six? It could have passed for it. It would have fooled me, honestly. But that just
Oh, yeah,
comes down to
especially
the
too, like the
sound
kaiju
design.
combining
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
look like Devastator.
Yeah. And I said earlier that it looked like in the first one the humans are connected to in the cockpit. It looks realistic enough. But in this one, they're like, what was that?
I was looking at my notes on my phone. I dropped my
Oh,
phone.
they were they're just connected by one thing, and there's these hologram this stuff this hologram you can touch. Which I know, Craig, in the past you would always say you don't like that, where there's this fake hologram technology you can interact with.
Well, because I know it's like when they're filming the movie, it's like them pretending to do stuff and they put the holograms there afterwards. Because I know
Oh
you
yeah.
obviously can't make your hologram, but like it's just one of those things. Like you look at, I know the actor's just like messing around. He has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, he's like Scott Eastwood's looking at us like pretend like he's grabbing a cord, and he's probably looking at it in real life like, what is this? What am I here? But it just everything just looked so fake and so perfect at the same time, and that comes down to the CGI. Like the monsters in the first one, they looked rough. Even the Jaegers, they look beaten up and like
I've seen better days.
old. Yeah, and this one, everything looks so clean, and I don't know. Just
No,
it's a difference when you have some guy who doesn't know what he's doing, and you have Guillermo del Toro and someone who has a vision. It's night and day in what the end
now
results
who
are in both
built the
movies.
Jaegers? Was it that Chinese corporation? They just built the drones.
They built the drones. I'm pretty sure. I mean, maybe in
Okay.
this one, who knows? The Chinese are like doing everything. I don't know.
Well, because that I was going to say because like if you have a movie in China, you can't portray the Chinese in any sort of bad light. So if they built the Jaegers, they have to be perfectly spotless clean. They have to be always working perfectly
I mean,
because they would
did.
never build anything wrong.
They probably did.
That's what they because there are millions of
Yeah,
stipulations.
because which it was the Jaeger, the something Athena or whatever.
I don't
Apparently,
remember the names. I just remember
I
Scrampler,
remember. I
Scapper.
remember because they now were like giving genders to their Jaegers. Apparently, robots need that in the movies. But um, the the one Athena, it was the two people using it. It was the one with like the sword. It looked like a samurai sword, and she's like. They're doing like kicks, like karate kicks with it. I'm like, what is this? Like it was just so unnatural, and they're like jumping off the back of and doing flips off the giant kaiju and everything. It was just the movement. I was like, it literally looked like a video game.
Made me start laughing was when the rogue Jaeger with like the kaiju brain in it when
Obsidian
he was
Fury,
yeah whatever when it was fighting the new gypsy one.
Gypsy Avenger.
Yes, when he pulled out his sword, then the kaiju one, it pulled out two swords and they went on fire. It's like, of course, like it can't be something simple. It's got to be two swords and it's on fire.
But that was another thing I was gonna say about these Jaegers was that they gave them like in the first one, like he had the what was it Raleigh and Namako, they had the sword for Gypsy Danger that it came out, but it was connected. It wasn't like energy based. It looked more like an authentic. It looked like more realistic and mechanical. And they didn't really use all these like now the ones walking around with like a ball and chain, it shoots it out, or like the one has an electric whip, one has a like an energy sword and everything. Like it was just so over the top.
I did laugh when uh, one of the kaijus was charging Gypsy Avenger in I think Tokyo, And they had like that gravity gun, and he was like grabbing every building and like
Oh
throwing
Oh
it
my
yeah,
at the
god, that was
building.
so terrible.
I was like, you're trying to like destroy
yeah.
the city to
Why did they
stop this
just use
one
the
person.
gravity gun on that thing?
I was thinking that too, but just like it reminds me of like Man of Steel, where, like he'll like topple every building, just like maybe
And then
kill
the best
someone
is
right
John
away.
Boyega goes, "How many buildings is this kaiju gonna take?"
What he really meant was how many people do I have to throw at it to kill it?
And I think there was a throwaway line like
Oh,
when
the
the
city's
when the
evacuated. I was gonna mention that. They're like everyone's
yeah.
in a Titan or in a kaiju shelter. Everyone's out of the
And the
city.
best is they say that line after you see a group of people. The shelter shuts and people are still in the streets running. Not everyone got evacuated.
In Tokyo, it's like the most populous city in the world. I mean, it's you probably are going to get everybody into a shelter. It's like 30, 40. I think there's like there's more people living in Tokyo than Canada, so I don't know if everyone's getting into a shelter in time.
I already know that Craig clapped when Scrapper came back.
I was rolling my eyes because, of course, the Chinese nepotism actor was there to save the day. I was like, of course, right on cue.
I also felt that like it was so stupid and completely undermined the situation that they had Charlie Day as like the the alien the aliens like infected him and took control of his mind because he
Kaiju.
was
You're not aliens.
no, the precursors were the aliens controlling the kaiju.
Oh.
The kaijus were run by an alien race that came through another dimension.
Well, yeah, he
Whatever,
was
whatever.
he
But
was
they were called the
merged with them or
precursors.
whatever.
The precursors were the aliens that were controlling the kaiju. And because he was still doing the drift with the kaiju brain, somehow the aliens were able to control his mind, and that's why he was controlling the kaiju.
Well, they said in the first one that it's a two-way drift.
Yeah,
So I guess, sure, they're controlling him, sure, why not?
it's
But
just,
just so
it's just
weird why they'd make him.
yeah, because like he's very comical and like so like having him deliver all those lines at the end is just like so stupid. Like it takes you out of the situation that there's a giant monster fighting in the city and he's like, yeah, take that, you stupid you mechanical jerk. Like I'm like, like it just ruins it. I mean, the movie was already ruined when it was made, but it just when you're watching it, that really takes you out to have him be like the bad guy, like the antagonist in it, and like
I wouldn't
narrate and
say it
talk.
takes you out. By like you said, as soon as it starts, you're like, oh my god. I don't think
Because
I enjoyed a
It
single thing
just
about this.
yeah, it just adds on to it. Like you can't even have like just a normal bad guy in it. Like you have to have like even a comedy element to your
You don't need a
antagonist.
bad. The first one didn't have a bad guy at all. It was just them versus the monsters. It's simple enough, but then
Yeah.
you have to add this. Oh, he's being possessed or whatever. He's being controlled, and now he wants to do some evil stuff. It's just like, come on.
like Charlie being brainwashed or whatever, that didn't bother me as much. It was just like everything else you said, like him being the main bad guy. Like if
Well,
Charlie just opened the portal and kind of got out of the way, I guess it'd be whatever.
well, I don't know about you guys. That one scene threw me off completely when because he said to Herman, he was like, "Oh, why don't you, come over to my place, have some dinner. You can meet Alice." And then he goes back home,
Oh
That's the
my
and
god, that,
brain.
that
yeah,
actually
it's
made
the
me
brain.
laugh.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it threw me off. I was just like, oh,
I was just like, "What the like?"
I mean, I don't know
I
how
don't,
you could like sneak a kaiju brain like around and no one will notice, but
also,
it's just a
yeah.
giant fish tank.
I mean,
Ignore it.
there's some weird ethical undertones there when he's like, oh, goes into the bedroom and he puts the headset on.
Oh,
Like I
he's
was
just a
like,
weirdo now.
yeah, they ruined his character for sure.
Well, they ruined everything that they touched with this one. And as I said earlier, this thing was a box office disappointment, quote unquote. It had a budget of 150 to 176 million. It grossed 290, and it made only 59.6 million in North America. Only made 65 million in China, or it had a debut of 65 million in China. They said it needed to gross about 350 to break even. So
womp womp womp.
this thing lost a good amount for Legendary. And I even think the break even point takes into account how much it made in North America. It definitely lost more. I don't know how much it lost, but it lost an unholy amount.
Pacific Rim is dead. Bury it.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, this is definitely the kind of movie where it's more fun to talk about like why everything went wrong and like all their dumb decisions. But like, they wanted to have like a cinematic universe for this
They did, and
because they were
not
talking about
anymore.
like they assembled like a writers room and they're trying to plan out like future movies. Like I think that's why they had all this like the kids and they're hoping to have more sequels and stuff. And yeah, this just killed it right on the spot because they're talking about too, like crossing over with Godzilla. Like I guess
Yeah,
they
the
were desperate to try
MonsterVerse.
to they're desperate to try to increase the viability of the franchise and gotta make a good movie first before you do that.
Or
Yeah.
just don't make a brutal second one and go. If you're going to cross over, just keep the first one. No need to make that this
Because this reminds
monstrosity.
me of like the Dark Universe with the Mummy. How they were trying so hard to make a
Oh
cinematic
yeah.
universe, and it's dead on arrival on its first movie, just like how this kind of was on its first attempt to make the cinematic universe dead on arrival.
Well, it's kind of like they missed the point of what made the first one so enjoyable.
I mean
They
that
thought
too.
they thought probably, oh, more monsters, more kaiju, that would make it better. And it's like, no, the first one was definitely more nuanced, it was more enjoyable. And in a way, the first one had a little bit more restraint than this one. This one was
Yeah.
just crazy. There were just kaiju or robots using gravity guns, and I don't know. It was just it was ridiculous, and I was just counting down the minutes until it ended. And I guess I'll say really quickly, Craig, when I had no idea how much Chinese subtitles are going to be in this movie, because the I may or may not have found a copy, and Craig watched a copy that I may or may not have given him, and there was no subtitles in it, so Craig just watched it blind.
I mean, I felt Charlie's frustration when like the woman's talking to him in Mandarin or whatever, and he's like, "I don't know what you're saying," because like I don't know what you're saying either.
Because when I was watching that one, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to find an alternative," because I didn't know what she was saying.
Like, yes, Charlie, I feel your pain. Tell her off. But you can't kill her because she's friends with higher ups and executives, and
I
China's
think
really
they
trying
might.
to make her
I think they might have realized that towards the end of filming, and that's why they just had her speak in English for the last like 20 minutes of the movie.
just cut her out of the movie entirely.
She's gonna prove you wrong and get another award. Then you'll be
She's gonna prove
laughing.
you wrong, and then she's gonna also star in another legendary blockbuster.
Who
I mean,
knows?
she's
Maybe
in
she'll.
three, right? She was in The Great Wall. She was in Godzilla
Was
or
she
Kong
in?
Skull
Wait,
Island.
wait, wait, wait. Was she in the Meg, or was that another actress?
Probably another actress.
Oh, okay.
Racist.
What? Whoa!
Yeah, she's in the because I looked this up. It was like The Great Wall, Kong Skull
Oh,
Island, and then
Matt
this one.
Damon. Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah,
right.
well, no one saw that.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe she'll be in Adam Wingard's new movie.
Oh
Oh God,
God.
stop.
She'll be a real treat for
As
Colin.
far as I'm concerned, I don't know if I don't know if this is worse than Godzilla vs Kong. I might lean forward and say Godzilla vs Kong is worse only because I had some kind of expectation.
Yes.
This one
Yeah.
I just didn't care enough, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
I mean, I can see why that's more disappointing, but I think this is without a doubt worse. Like there is absolutely nothing in this. Like at least in Godzilla vs Kong, you could say, well, I
Uh,
like the Godzilla. I call Godzilla one. There's something to, I guess I don't know. This I feel like there's absolutely like I will never want to watch this ever again. Like even Godzilla vs Kong, you might watch a scene just for the sake of watching it. This is just pure garbage.
you might have a point.
Mm.
But as far as I'm concerned, Steven DeKnight and Adam Wingard are in the same company
Fair
of
enough.
not
Fair enough.
knowing what to do with giant monsters,
I'm
and
not
Does
saying
Stephen
Godzilla vs
Denight?
Kong is a masterpiece. I'm just saying this one is just like pure garbage.
yeah, and they just turn into a giant cartoon and have very little regards for human characters or what to do with them. Thanks a lot, Steven DeKnight and Adam Wingard.
I mean, I like the first one, but like this dying, this killing the franchise. Like it wasn't even a franchise. It was a movie that got one sequel, and they just a sequel that bombed. So it's dead.
Also a completely unnecessary sequel.
Yeah, I mean that's it. They accomplished
the
their goal in
first
the end of
one,
the first one.
yeah, the first one ended it on a very like there was no,
They destroyed the breach. They destroyed
yeah.
everything.
I mean, there was no coming back from that. It was done. Humanity won. Yeah.
Well, I'm just so glad that uh, the next blockbuster that Emily Carmichael co-wrote is Jurassic World. I'm sure she did a fantastic job co-writing it with Colin Trevorrow. That's all I have to say.
Oh God, I know you want to go see that, and it's gonna be torture.
Well, I think we said our we ranted just long enough about Pacific Rim Uprising. I would say don't watch it. I wouldn't
Not even just like a
recommend it.
curiosity, like
Yeah,
it's not
I
even like
wouldn't
fun to
recommend it.
watch.
It's almost 2 hours long, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of everyone's time, and it was a waste of a whole studio's money.
You know what? I've suffered through it. You guys can too. Watch it.
I guess that's been the unbiased opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased. I have been Colin.
I have been Craig.
And I've been Daniel, unfortunately.
Yeah, I bet you have.